Welcome one, welcome all to DeFi, Crypto, and Airdrops, the Money Talks edition. We do this every Thursday at noon Central Time and 10 a.m. Pacific Time. And it is a special edition that we just do once a week where, Taylor, an estate lawyer that's based in McKinney, Texas, and Jeff, a financial advisor, takes the time during their lunch to talk the macro finance. So, government, the legal aspects of crypto, and just, general TradFi, all those things, just so we can kind of round out a whole picture. Don't just want to focus on crypto, want to focus on, all the different aspects of ways to not just generate wealth, but also to protect it, as far as, mitigating taxes, all those sorts of things. And, of course, estate planning and that sort of thing is where, Taylor specializes. So with that, how's it going, Taylor and Jeff? How you doing today?
It's going great, but we need to talk about how Jeff is loved by the universe because we just went to Freddy's to eat.
Yes.
And he was longingly staring at the ice cream machine. and then we turned to walk out.
Yes.
And the guy goes, "Would you like a free Oreo shake?"
Man.
It's just me, Taylor, this older gentleman. When I say older, probably like 70, 75. So I had just spent like 20 seconds just talking myself out of how I don't need that. Right?
And the universe was like, you need this, fatty. You need this.
The guy walks out and he goes, full way, he goes, "Either one of you guys want this double Oreo concrete I just made?" They just drove off without it. And dude, that was the one I was going to get, right? And I look at it, because it's like, wait, what? He goes, "Anybody want it? It's free." And I go, "Heck yeah, dude!" And I realized after I grabbed it, I was like 10 feet away. The old man was like 3 feet away.
Yeah.
So I turned to him, and I don't know, maybe you said something about it, Taylor, but I was like, "Oh, dang, I'm sorry. You want to fight for
it?" Jeff was like so hungry, he's willing to fight a 75-year-old man for a shake.
Hey,
all right.
I'm an honorable person. What can I say?
You know what? All fair in love and war and concrete shakes. So let's go ahead and jump on in this. I do want to let everyone know, of course, there's people watching across all of the X platforms and, the different YouTube and Rumble. But if you want to be a part of the conversation, go ahead and follow us at DeFi, Crypto, and Airdrops on YouTube. And we love it when you're in the chat and asking questions. That's why we're here. That's why we're doing this. If you have any questions about estate law, TradFi, DeFi, anything like that, this is your time. So with that, let's go ahead and jump into this topic. We're going to be talking about the Genius Act and its impact on stablecoins and how the legislation is going to start shaping other legislation that is coming forward this next week. And so I want to go over some things that I found on X, but it kind of ties it all together. So as anybody that watches the show knows, we're very bullish on Plume and what they are building. And full disclosure, I have a very nice bag of Plume, not as nice as Taylor's, but I have a very nice bag of Plume, and both of us have been using DeFi to stack free Plume and free money for months now. But reason being, I'm going to detail why we're doing this. So I'm not saying run out and grab Plume, but do your own research. But this is why we are bullish on it. So Plume, USD1, which is World Liberty Financial's stablecoin that they've launched, is Donald Trump's company that he started with his sons, with his family. And so, this is one big reason that, anytime that you find a company that is aligning itself with, legislation, like it or not, it's part of legislation. You have special interests, things like that. But, this is the type of thing that you want to look out for, follow the money. Taylor, Jeff, you have anything to add to that?
Well,
other than stop talking about DeFiing Plume because we're making shit tons of money, and you keep telling everybody, and the more people that do it, the less money we make. All right. So, Michael, don't tell people the secret. All right. So, you can go buy Plume. I don't care about that. Just don't do that.
Yeah.
I was going to comment from the cynical corner that, to your point about align yourself with the powers that be. I saw a report. I don't know if it's Forbes or I don't know. I saw a report yesterday that just since election, primarily due to his meme coin and a little bit of other things. I mean, who knows how much Trump cologne's added to the bag, right? But primarily due to the meme coin, Trump's worth $3 billion more.
Wow.
Damn.
So in 4.5, 5 months, whatever it comes out to be, 6 months, that's just crazy. Not a comment on the ethics or not of that. Just a point that if you're making $3 billion because you're meme coin and you're the president, you're probably not moving against crypto in any meaningful way.
It's definitely not a good look, and I'll admit that. Trump launching a meme coin right as he was being elected president, probably not a good look. There was a lot of liquidity. Those that don't remember, a lot of liquidity got sucked out of the crypto market, because of that token. And then, of course, as everyone was buying that up, that liquidity was being sucked out, as the people that got in early were selling off that token. So, but moving right along, I know we have limited time, but this is a picture of part of the Plume team, the CEO, and part of the team. They met with the Treasury and the SEC's crypto task force last month. And this is a picture of them with Trump. So again, just like Coinbase, the way that Coinbase has been very successful moving forward here in the U.S. is aligning itself and ensuring that it stayed in compliance with whatever regulation was coming out and coming forward. And that's something that Plume has done very well. They have talked with legislators and they have ensured. They've kind of looked forward to where they see stable coins and the legislation or regulation around stable coins, how that it was going to move. And they've communicated with the SEC and the Treasury so that they built out their technology to stay in compliance and to be upgradable to be able to evolve as that compliance and those regulations come out. What say you?
Yeah, so that's going to be very important because what we need to talk about today is what is being called Crypto Week next week. So if you're into crypto, you should know there is a bunch of legislation coming that's going to be moved forward next week, and you can expect that some of these things could affect your investment. So it was one of the things I wanted to do this week was research it, get a good understanding, because when they start messing around with certain things, especially if you're DeFiing, that can affect what happens. Is because one of the big ones is this Genius Act that has about a 90% chance of passing. And so I'll go over this when you want to get into it, but we'll get over what it could affect in the DeFi market.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And I know, Jeff, you're very well versed in TradFi regulation. I mean, what does this mean to you? Like if a budding technology or investment vehicle like crypto is coming forward and they're just like, imagine TradFi. I mean, it's been around forever, but imagine being at the very beginning of TradFi, like the stock market and things like that. What is the gravity of being in at the ground floor when this legislation is being drafted?
Well, I mean, I think presuming it's bullish. I mean, it's funny. I was literally looking up prices of coins as you were, right before you asked me the question. The mathematics of anything where you're in the ground floor is obviously much better than anywhere else, presuming it goes up. But, I think there's I can say that this is the reason I've gotten into crypto and just talking to you guys and the research I have is the pivot that has taken place in the legislative and regulatory space. So it's not the underlying concept of crypto or the mathematics or altcoin, shitcoins, Bitcoin. It's simply the fact that, I was not comfortable, even as recently as like 2022, that they just wouldn't say, never mind, no more Bitcoin, we're done. We're going to buy it from you, and it's now made illegal, and you can't trade it any more than you can't import cocaine or whatever.
Well, like they did with gold.
That's exactly right. Like they did with gold in the 30s. I mean, one day they just, nope. So now that it's pivoted, I think two things. One, presuming that Trump has a full term, I think that we have reached a point of no return to where even if the regulatory environment shifted significantly back, it's not going to go to you're not legal. It'll go to we want to put security level regulations on the crypto industry. Right. And I think there's a lot of things about compliance that don't make sense to me, but there's a whole lot of things about compliance that are absolutely necessary. So it's a lot of it's good and bad. There's a lot of, but there's also areas that will make, for example, before the Great Depression, there wasn't regulations and requirements on banks the way there are now to have reserve. That's why I had run on banks, right? So what I think will happen is I think we will get a significant explosion in the industry. I think we'll have another, what's the guy's name that collapsed that Sam
Bankman-Fried?
Yeah, I think we'll probably, at some point, we will have another one of those that is large enough that you get consensus, you get a pissed off enough user base across the political spectrum that you then get a consensus on regulation that says, okay, well, this is the minimum required to really make sure our citizens are protected.
Gotcha.
I don't think my point is, I don't think it's going to become the Wild West, but I do think it's a starting gun to a much wider audience. Okay, this is here to stay. It's not just some fringe internet thing. It's not just dominated by social media. The largest banks and money managers in the world are now moving into the space because they see an opportunity to make money. The only reason that so now they're on the regulatory side of the crypto user, and the only reason that the big boys would go back against it is if they don't make money at it. Right?
Oh no, absolutely.
It's like they're making money at it. So I think the TradFi world, from a regulatory and legislative and business decision perspective, in the last 18 months has thrown in the towel and pivoted to a if you can't beat them, join them mentality.
Well, and one look at any of the news, and those of us that are in crypto and especially DeFi have seen the writing on the wall for a while. I mean, they've been, JP Morgan Chase and all of them were talking about, that it was, Beanie Babies and, all this, basically telling everybody not to, pet rock, that, don't invest in it. But all the while they were building out on it. And then if you look at, the prices aren't going up because they're doing over the counter purchases, but they've been buying up Bitcoin and now Ethereum at record paces. I mean, massive amounts, all while, the market is going sideways or going down. So they're just stacking, while everyone else is getting fudded out because they're just paying attention to price. They're not looking at data or analytics, and they are getting fudded out and selling while, institutions are buying up. So, always do not invest with emotion. You need facts, logic, figures, data. You need to invest off data. But I'm going to read this real quick because it's going to frame the conversation and it will segue nicely into the open discussion. So the Genius Act passed the Senate with a vote of 68-30 on June 17th. Heads to the House during Crypto Week, like Taylor was talking about, starting July 14th. Likely to be signed into law with strong White House backing. I guarantee if it lands on his desk, it's getting signed. Complements the Stable Act and Clarity Act for broader digital asset regulation. Who wins? Governments and central banks gain programmable money tools, spend by dates, automated tax behavior control, enhanced real-time visibility and policy enforcement, infrastructure providers, firms building payment rails, identity and compliance. So know your customer is KYC is what they're talking about here. For example, Visa, MasterCard, Palantir stand to become essential service providers. Early mover institutions like BlackRock, like I said, JP Morgan, Citibank, Circle, and PayPal, they've already positioned themselves. RWAs, you can go on Plume Portal and invest in funds that BlackRock holds right now, tokenized, assets, treasuries, private credit, all these different things. Surveillance and compliance tech, as privacy fades, firms offering analytics, AML and KYC, they'll thrive. Who loses? Retail and regional banks may be disintermediated as programmable stablecoins go direct to consumer, reducing deposits and credit control. This is a risk. I think that's probably frames it good enough. I'm going to kick it over to you, Taylor. I know that you've been doing a lot of research on the Genius app, so go ahead and take it from here.
Yeah. So what was scaring me was like, okay, well, the Genius Act has to do with stable coins. Okay, it's regulating that. How, if someone's going to offer a coin that is pegged to the dollar, what are the right requirements going to be? And so, of course, as I was thinking about that, I'm like, well, what, I do a lot of stable coin DeFiing with, different things like with Bitcoin and different things. And I'm like, well, if they deregulate this next week and they say USDC isn't viable anymore, that could significantly affect my DeFi portfolios that I have. So I was really concerned about it. But after going through it, the major ones, USDC, USDT are safe. I mean, they pretty much follow the protocols in the law right now. They're not going to get rid of them. And so that was one of my fears is there's going to be like a last minute sneak it in kind of a thing. And they're going to make USDC legal and magically we have a Fed coin.
Yeah.
And, and so, drastically affecting things. But so far, there's nothing like that in the bill. But it is going to affect certain stable coins. And I had to get out of one of my DeFi positions because I was scared of it. And that is DAI, USDE, and GHO and FRAC. They could be affected by this legislation. So if you, I want you to be aware that if you're doing DeFi right now using those stable coins, well, next week, if this passes, it might affect your positions because I imagine those stable coins, if it becomes illegal in America, are going to have massive withdrawals of money. And I don't know how that's going to affect those platforms.
Or they're going to have to immediately pivot to their portfolio to regulations.
Yeah.
Which my question is, if they pass, so let's say the vote, vote's on Wednesday. I presume there's some kind of compliance period, right? Within 180 days. The problem is
investors, they pull out immediately. Investors are gone, and that's where you get screwed over. But I want you to understand why. It isn't that they're going to be against the law. They absolutely will be allowed to move forward. They're going to have to change because under this new law, you're not allowed to have a stable coin that has yield. So any stable coin that's issuing yield right now, I think DAI, what they usually call it?
DAI,
DAO, MakerDAO, DAI, it gives yield, right? So that one, they're going to have to go back in and reprogram it and not give any more yield with it in order to be a viable stable coin going forward. So those are things to be aware of in the Genius Act. But all in all, the Genius Act also has some really big benefits for certain things coming in crypto. I want to kind of go through them. It's going to set the stage for having yield, barbell regulation. There's going to be margin.
So real quick, what's barbelled? Because I'm not familiar with that term.
So let me give the definition.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
zero yield payment stablecoin for transactions versus fully regulated yield-bearing tokenized MMFs and deposit tokens for savings and DeFi collateral. So basically, like creating savings accounts and different things like that through stablecoins will be allowed, and you'll be able to do certain things. It's supposed to pave the way for RWA real world assets and like treasury bills, different things like that. So things like Plume can finally get, legal in America, and you can actually go to the Plume portal and actually invest on there.
Without a VPN. Not that I'm saying
without saying
use a VPN.
Live in Sweden.
Just saying.
And then some other things that are going to really bring some stability to the area on a bunch of things. But that being said, you got to be very aware that we're having a lot of legislation next week. It's very exciting. It's probably why Bitcoin is pumping right now, and all these others are pumping up, because if these things do pass, it's going to be great. But whenever you invest in a time like this, it can also be a shock, because if last minute changes happen and they significantly alter things, you can get this, and it's going up and up and up, and then all of a sudden rug pulled, and then things are dropping significantly.
Well, one thing I will say is, and that brings up a good point. When it comes to the crypto market, it is important that a little bit of a plug. I want people to go and join the Discover Investment Group Discord. I put a sheet in there for free, and it's basically a ladder out strategy. What Taylor just mentioned is that, as these assets start to pump, there is going to be a pullback. So it's always important to be taking profits. So, building a ladder out strategy, you definitely want to be doing that. So a part of that Discord is Discover Crypto, which is a morning show that gives, alpha, kind of like we're giving as far as the news. You got Blockchain Basement with Drew that has some really good, info. And then you got Kelly over at BitLab Academy that teaches technical analysis and reading charts, and investing. And of course, all of them, in the Discord, they share their, their shorts and their longs, and how they're making money, and just doing day trading and scalp trading, stuff like that. But anyway, I just wanted to make sure that people, were aware that those assets or those resources were there. But yeah. You were saying.
But no, that's very important. So it's like understanding those kind of concepts, understanding what's happening, that legislation like this can be great, but it also can be a very scary thing. So some people swear by weeks like this, you pull out a lot of money and you just sit on the sideline, let the week pass. You'll miss out if everything goes as planned. I imagine you're going to see a big boom in the crypto market. But it's one of those things of, if you can't stomach big losses, then you probably should sit on the sideline waiting to see kind of how things play out.
And again, to my question, do we know, because I 100% agree from a volatility and risk standpoint that yes, investors are instantaneous, whatever the read is, right? Good, bad, or neutral. But I'm asking from the platform side, how long would a platform that isn't in compliance have to get in compliance? Because it can't be instantaneous, because you can't.
I think when I looked at one thing, it said that they wanted them to be, and it's really an investment. So this should be but it was going to be sometime in 2026 that they'd have to be compliant by.
Okay. So we'll see an initial reaction. And I would think most of the enthusiasm is going to come from just whatever the final language in the bill is, giving us a direction of where the regulatory framework's going.
Yeah. But
make a decision.
Yeah. But some of this kind of stuff is like, you have to just go with, okay, understand that this is very good for the crypto world, because the more regulation that you have, and I'm going to be honest with you, if you want to make a fortune, you got to be bold. You got to be able to handle. You got to go out there and just understand that, yeah, it might suck, but if it's good, that's where you make serious money. That's the whole thing about investing. So don't put mortgage your home and put it on it, but if you have extra money and you're like, hey, I'm willing to take a risk on it. There's still the Clarity Act that's out there. I don't know if they're going to actually do anything with it. next week. But that's the one. I don't believe that's the one. There's one where the House is trying to get it so the Fed cannot make a coin. The House has been voting on that. Ain't gonna get passed. I can promise you that. The Fed is going to get involved in this if it all gets going.
So I real quick, I just looked it up. It looks like it's 12 months to get into compliance.
Yeah, that seems about like what I read on different things. But you got to understand, we only have the Senate bill right now. The House is now voting on it. But there's a 90, the betting odds is 90% that it's going to pass. So I can give you the betting odds right now on things passing. So kind of give you an understanding. So the betting odds right now, 90% that the Genius Act. And if you guys are trying to figure out how this is going to affect your portfolio, put your portfolio into Grok 4 here. It's apparently amazing. You can go Grok 4, put your portfolio, and say, how is this going to affect my investments right now if this passes? I'm sure it'll give you a pretty good idea of what's going to happen with them. The Clarity Act has about a 60% chance of passing. The Stable Act, which is basically the Genius Act House version, probably they're going to go with the Senate version because they usually do. Then we have FIT 21 Act. It only has about a 25% chance of passing. The Digital Asset Anti-Money Laundering Act has a really low. It only has about 15% chance. And then the Bitcoin Act has no hearing scheduled, no House companion, only about less than 10% chance that thing's going to pass on the betting markets.
Yeah.
So
have you looked at Polymarket?
Yeah, I got this off of I don't know if it was Polymarket. I just I had chat go and find it all for me and put it all together.
You know what?
I'm lazy.
If I'm not, dude, that's not lazy. I mean, that's just smart. I mean, time is money, and if you have a digital assistant like AI that you can just say, "Hey, I need this information," and it gives it for you while you do other things. I mean, why would you pay for an assistant, a secretary or a legal assistant or something like that, when you have all of that wrapped into one?
Because I don't know if this bitch is lying to me.
That is that is a real thing. That is a real thing.
But the other good thing is I tried smelling salts for the first time. That thing has a kick. I'll tell you, man.
Holy mackerel.
Yeah.
It was right before a presentation. He's like, hey, his random thing in his pocket. He's like, that sounds really bad. He's like, ever tried smelling salts? I'm like, what? Oh, yeah. He just has it looks like a Tylenol ball. He doesn't screw it, move this little plastic thing. He's like, yeah, get it. I'm like, okay. I'm like, oh my God. It's like getting punched in the brain.
And Jeff has an extra large nasal canal. So he really could get it up there. See, Jeff, you can turn to the side. Everybody can see. He's not Jewish. All right. So if you're coming for the Jews, he's not one of them.
I'm just smart like that.
You may have to tell your story one day about how this guy was going to go with you because he thought you were Jewish. He's going to mess with you.
I was like, the guy goes, he's like, how was your holiday? How was your holiday? And I'm like, good. Like, he's like, and he looks at me and goes, did you not celebrate? And it was like December 20th, right? Just for the record, technically, get struck by lightning right now. I'm going down somewhere in the, non-denominational evangelical world, but who knows? And he's like, Hanukkah. And I went, oh, no, I didn't, I didn't celebrate Hanukkah. And he goes, why not? And I'm like, are you not Jewish? And I'm like, no, I mean, I could totally get down to 7 days of celebration, though. So, I mean, I'm open to the idea, but no, as of right now, I'm not. And he's like, "Oh," the tone shifted. Like you can tell, he's like, "This guy is not qualified to run my money."
Yeah,
But,
but if you were Jewish,
anyway,
then you
such
would
is
be.
life, right?
Yeah.
So actually, I was just reading through this link that you sent me from Chat GPT, Taylor, and found something interesting. So as far as stable coins, you had asked it its impact on Plume, and it says Plume's stablecoin PUSD. Their strategy is already aligned with these requirements. Rather than creating an unregulated algorithmic coin, Plume chose to wrap USDC for PUSD, meaning PUSD reserves are simply USDC held one for one. USDC's issuer, Circle, is expected to become a permanent payment stablecoin issuer under the new law, giving Circle's existing state licenses and reserve disclosures. Thus, each PUSD is effectively backed by a dollar in a US bank or T bill via Circle's reserves. When the Genius Act compliance kicks in, Circle will have to ensure full reserve compliance and undergo the required audits. And by extension, PUSD will inherit that high standard of trust. Plume itself does not custody fiat for PUSD. Circle does.
Yeah, that was huge. Like when I was going through that, I was like, wow, that was a genius move by them, because they could have been greedy and tried to create their own thing to make money off of it, but they did it the wise way, which was, whoever's running their legal department really thought through how to structure that platform in a very good way. I mean, it doesn't mean it's gonna like be the RWA of the future, but they really did a good job of compliance and making it a position. I guess, I mean, I think they're doubling month over month. They're
TBL.
Yeah. So, I mean, institutions are getting into it because they did it the correct way. So kudos to them for doing that, but still long ways to go. We still have
go ahead.
Oh no, I don't. You can go. I was going
to. I was just saying, very forward leaning of them, where they built out. Well, one, obviously they thought ahead, but as they built it out, they were talking with regulators, they were talking with subject matter experts, lawmakers, things like that. But also the way that they built out Plume mainnet is that it's fully upgradable and modular. So basically, as the regulation moves forward, they can actually update it without having to take the whole network down. I mean, they can take the small pieces of the rules that run the mainnet, and pull those out and put new ones in. So it's always evolving. It will allow it to evolve as regulation evolves. So yeah, that's what I've been really impressed with. And then of course the Plume portal, how well that's put together, where it just gives you everything that's built on Plume in one place. So you can go there if you want to invest in derivatives, if you want to invest in RWAs, if you want to invest in liquidity pools. I mean, there's a couple of places on Radium right now. You can get tokenized Tesla stock, pools, and actually invest in tokenized Tesla pools right now on Radium. So, there's just a lot of really cool stuff going on right now. It's to be determined how it's going to be more of an advantage over traditional, finance and, the vehicles of investing, because, the thing that I see most of all right now is with tokenized stocks and treasuries and things like that is the enhanced liquidity. Being able to enter and exit those investments 24/7, 365, lower fees. You're not going to have to pay people like Jeff to do that stuff for you. Because Jeff's not Jewish. I'm not gonna trust him with my money.
He did fire me, y'all. Like it was like that happened, and all right.
Yeah. But the Clarity Act is going to. There are some laws currently in the books that make DeFi problematic, in the sense of the people who create it. There are some laws that you're not supposed to make algorithms and programming like this. However, they haven't. It's not illegal for you to do it. It's the people who create it. But under the Clarity Act, DeFi will become a legitimate creation, and you will start seeing institutions DeFi. So it's something I want people to be aware of like, this is going to be, this is great. DeFi is going to become a legitimate thing. Institutions will start getting involved in it. But when institutions do get involved, those, yields that you're enjoying right now of 50, 60% are going to go away. And so
potentially,
because they're going to have tons of money in there, and the more money that's in them, the less.
Yeah, you're just distributing money over more coin. It just
that's absolutely. Well, the way that these liquidity pools work is the fees that are generated, the portion that you get is the percentage of the pool that you own. So if there's $1 million in there and you put, $100,000, then you get 10% of the fees generated. So the more TVL, the more liquidity that's in that pool, if you're only putting in $1,000 and there's $1 billion or $1 trillion in that pool, you're going to get a very small portion of those fees. And so, what Taylor's saying is 100% true. The only thing that might counteract that is as interest and as use of these liquidity pools goes up from swapping and stuff, from people trying to, because if you're not familiar, by all means, please come to our channel. I have a DeFi Academy that teaches you all this. And we teach for free. We don't charge for anything. But the only thing that could counteract that is the way that the pool works is, say it's a USDC wrapped ETH pool. The way that it's earning fees is when people are basically trading USDC for wrapped ETH or wrapped ETH for USDC. And they pay a very small fee for that. That's how you're earning. So the more people that are doing that, either to get exposure to those assets or to enter these pools, then that could counteract it a bit. To what extent? Time will tell.
Yeah. Well, Michael, I forgot to tell you this, but you're famous.
Yeah,
on Tuesday night, I went to dinner with somebody, and he goes, and we were talking about, we started getting into crypto, and I was like, oh yeah. I'm like, he wanted to know about DeFi because I was like, I'm trying to tell him about it. And so I show him, where you need to go is Michael has a channel and it's DeFi. And I show him a picture. He goes, "Oh, I know that guy. I watch his podcast. So you're famous."
I'm famous in very small circles.
Yeah. In the very small crypto DeFi world, you
are
famous.
Yeah. In the 1% of the 1% of the 1%.
Yeah. But yes. So just be aware that these things, it's not going to affect how much you have in there. Like, you won't lose money, but you won't be making the yields that currently you can make in certain things.
Absolutely. Let's see. What are the markets doing right now? They're still moving up.
Is Bitcoin still going up?
Yeah.
I'm high right now.
So Bitcoin's at 113,562. It's up 4% on the day. Ethereum is up 6%. That's the one I'm watching right now. If we keep historically, as far as the cycle goes, we're looking for Bitcoin dominance to drop, which means the market share that Bitcoin holds, because what that is a reflection of everything else. Ethereum down, going up in value relative to Bitcoin. So right now, Bitcoin dominance has just been massive. We're waiting for that to come down. As that comes down, that means that the altcoins are going up faster than Bitcoin is. And so usually Ethereum is the one that front runs that, and it starts pumping. Once Ethereum's done, you're going to get high caps, things like XRP, BNB, Solana, a lot of these older ones, Tron. Another bullish news that came about Plume was their partnership with Plume. So Tron is now live on Plume mainnet, which allows for high liquidity swaps. Won't get into that, but that's what we're waiting to see right now. Is we're waiting to see Ethereum pump, and then followed by the alt. How long alts are going to pump? We're in uncharted territory. All of this that we've been talking about with this regulation, with these institutions that are building out dApps or decentralized applications, all these tokenized assets and RWAs. This is all new. we are moving from a speculative market to a utility market. And what that means in layman's terms is that before this, like Taylor was talking about, we were guessing if Bitcoin was going to be a store of value. We were guessing if this technology was going to take root or be squashed out by institutions and governments. It managed to slip under the wire, and it took hold. And so now it's too big to go away. They have to embrace it. So, that is where we're at right now, is we are at the very, very beginning. And those of you out there that are paying attention and taking the time to learn this stuff, about crypto, doing deep dives into, these projects, using tools like AI to save you time to do research, learning about DeFi and ways that you can lever up instead of just buying and holding, actually using those HODL bags to earn yield. Because like Taylor said, these, we're earning 1,000, 2,000, 3,000% on things like Plume isn't going to last forever. So you need to make, your money now so that when those APRs and APYs come down, you can have, a couple $100,000 or $1 million earning 10%, where you're making $100,000 a year passively, allowing you to go do a job that you want to go to. I call it fuck you money, where you don't have to go to a job, just to keep a roof over your head and food on the table. So that's why we're here. And again, we do all this for free. I mean, we don't ask for subscriptions. We don't ask for, you to be, pay to be a member. We don't ask you to pay for courses. We don't have sponsors. We don't have anything. This is 100% free. We just want you all out there to be safe and learn in a good environment so that you don't lose your money. So sorry, went on a little bit of a rabbit trail there, but just want to make sure that everyone out there understands all this.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I certainly understand that we're doing it for free.
Oh yeah. Jeff is intimately familiar with working for free. Yeah. He does it under a Vidoc every weekend.
There's a few things I wanted to show you guys, but I'm trying to get it in a bookmark so I can do it all at once here. So give me a minute or two.
No, how about it, man? We got about 20 minutes left.
But some random things that I've come across that I'm like, oh, that's interesting / terrifying.
Well,
there's something that Jeff needs to go over, because that it was shocking what the Fed put out.
So while he's looking that up, I will share. Let's see, Tron. So there was. Why is it not in my saved? Let me look it up. So basically what happened is Tron went live on Plume. And those of you that don't know, Tron has been around for quite some time. Let's see
Tron,
if I can...
as in like, cool bikes, Tron.
Oh, I mean, it's called. Same. Let's see. Tron Plume, latest. Here it is. All right. So Plume Network announces strategic integration with Tron to launch Skylink across the Tron network. Users can now access tokenized U.S. treasuries, private credit, and more, all natively and on-chain. So basically what this does, it's a big step for RWA and DeFi. And those of you that don't know, and I know it sounds like we're hyping Plume, but it's just out of all the projects that I see, and especially ones that aren't in the top 10, that are blue chips, just up and coming projects. I mean, we've been talking about Plume for months and months. My co-host, Jeff, not Texas Jeff, but California Jeff, he turned me on to it because he does airdrops, and I started buying it. And then, of course, I got it. I was in DeFi and I saw an opportunity there. I told Taylor about it, and he's made insane amounts of money in DeFi on it. I'm sure, but I cannot stress enough, not necessarily just Plume, but just finding these projects that are doing all the right things, fundamentally. because I mean that's how I invest. I don't invest in meme coins. I don't invest in hype. I don't watch prices. I look at fundamentals. I look at who's running the project. What are their backgrounds? Were they successful in their past endeavors? Who are they working with? Who's building on them? How are they building out their technology to, in this case, stay compliant? Is it built in a way that it's upgradable? All of these different things are the things that you need to look at when you are investing your hard-earned money. If you're looking at social media and investing in whatever is being hyped, you can make a quick buck off that. You can put some money into something when you see a big surge of people hyping XRP, for example, and it pumps 50%, 60%, and you sell. You can do you can ride that those pumps, but long term you want to invest in utility and you want to stay logical. If the fundamentals change, you have to be willing to sell. It's what I did with my XRP when they came out with RLUSD, their stable coin. I sold my XRP whenever XRP pumped because the fundamentals changed. There was other vehicles to move value other than XRP, which is a volatile asset. Institutions that are moving billions of dollars, even a 0.5% of $1 billion. You're talking about what, $1 million or $500,000? That you would lose.
I'm sorry, 0.5% of $1 billion?
Yeah, what would that be?
0.5% of $1 billion be 5 million.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry, I'm not a math whiz like you.
Yeah.
So $5 million potentially you would lose if XRP fluctuated even 0.5% during that transaction. Banks and institutions are not going to use a volatile asset to move large amounts of capital. They are going to want a stable coin, and Ripple understood that. And I can't stress enough, that is why they came up with RLUSD and added USDC to the XRP ledger. So XRP's fundamentals changed. I recognize that, and that's why I got out of it. You cannot get married to your investment. You cannot be emotional. So with that, Jeff, did you find what you were looking for?
Yeah, I did. I found several things. So we're just going to have a little roundabout of stuff here. Let me share my screen. All right, let's see here. There we go. All right. So let's see. There we go. The first thing I thought was I saw this on July 8th. This is the world's market capitalization by the top, 10 markets, right?
Mm-hmm.
Look at that. The United States now.
Can we see Jeff's pick?
Yeah. Let me pull up.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were looking. I didn't even looking at me.
There we go.
Like for anybody. All right. See this chart, right? U.S., DM, Europe, China, and Hong Kong, Japan, India, UK, France, Germany, Spain, Italy, Brazil, Mexico, and South Africa. I'm presuming those were not picked at random. But the point is that the U.S. stock market's valuation is equal to all of these added up. That's a huge amount of the world, right? I mean,
yep.
China and India are the two largest, when it comes to population. And I mean, Brazil's giant.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a good amount of people in Mexico, and you got the primary economies of Europe. I mean, it's I guess in some sense that's great because it shows that we are still the innovators and value drivers of the world, but it does look a little too good to be true and maybe come home to roost. Let's see. What's the next thing in my bookmarks I got? I saw this. We are at all-time highs for leveraged ETFs. So people are betting on, 2x the market, 3x the market. Yep, that's that. I'm going to skip this one. I'll get back to it. This is related. Guy says there's no fear in the market. Markets are leveraged to record levels. And look at this chart, guys. This was the .com bubble. This is the 07 real estate bubble. This is where we are in the AI bubble. I mean, Holy, I mean, we're at $550 billion in leveraged bets and buying on margin, right? So
That's what
just
that's what
make
I'm
sure.
saying. You need to invest off data. Jeff is given the alpha here. This is the data that you need to be investing on, not a social media post.
Yeah, well, I guess it wasn't, but it's supposed to be pushed from a
Well,
financial.
but
Yeah,
it's real data, not somebody saying like it's going to the
right.
moon. Nothing like that.
You look at this. You look at this, and you're like, I mean, this. Whenever something happens that causes this margin call, we're gonna see circuit breakers in the market. We're gonna see stuff like we haven't seen in a long, probably since '08, because margin usually you can get 50. You usually get some liquid stocks. So say you have a portfolio of, Tesla or Enron or whatever, well, not Enron, but some stock. You can usually borrow 50 cents on the dollar against that once you're past certain account levels at major brokers, your Merrill Lynch or wherever you might be. But that's contingent upon your stock staying valued at what it's valued. And you have a very narrow window, and there's usually internal measurements based on how far the stock falls, how quickly you have to meet that margin call. And so, if you're betting with the house money and it goes up, that's great. When you're betting with the house money and it goes down, the house takes your money because it's your responsibility. Mm-hmm. So the couple of things I want to point out about this, though, is we don't know how much, going from here to here was the 2022 correction. Remember, we went down about 20% in about 8 months. But then we said, screw it. Let's just go right back onto town and see what's happening. So I'm not saying this can't go a lot farther. And if it does, that just would be if looking back, that's your signal for obviously things were good because people kept borrowing that house money to make money. But at some point, you got to believe this reverts to the mean.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And just the magnitude of this it's not like in 2008, we were going to work and school in a horse and buggy and calling each other, on the old tiny telephone, right? That was we were still the world's largest economy, the world's strongest military, the world's reserve currency, and the margins are literally 5x what they were then. Mm-hmm. So something really to think about. That being said, let's go to the next one. We got a little bit of time. Let's see here. Let me get back.
We got as much time as you guys got. I just know that you guys are busy.
So the next one I wanted to show you, thought this was interesting. This is a recruiter employment person I follow. For men between 45 and 64, you're looking for a job for about 8 months. So anybody out there that's a little worried about whatever their day gig is, put some money in cash, right? Build your savings because it's taken a while.
Don't put your money in dirty fiat. What are you
maybe
talking
not
about?
Dirty fiat. When I say cash as a financial planner, I mean a resource you can trade for food and shelter.
Yes.
Feel free, guys. DeFi your way out of this situation. So it was.
This is not financial advice.
Jamie Dimon has come in and said that tariffs are inflationary and a 50% higher interest rates, which is an interesting position for him to take. Guys, this is obviously we're not the greatest generation, sending every other boy off to war and burying 400,000 Americans. So I'm not going to try to make that analogy. But I will say, if the next decade is anything like Taylor and I, and I know some of the conversations we had, you, Michael, think it might be, there will be a period of time people are going, damn, how the hell did everybody not just go crazy? Because you have things like what I showed you in the market, all-time margins. You've got what's happening with AI, but then you have things like this. Population of Americans aged 65 and older grew by 3% last year. For the first time, seniors outnumbered children in 11 states. Or this, in 2008, we had 38 million people over 65. Now we have 64. So our entire country is basically becoming one gigantic nursing home. And we don't know what that's going to do to demographic spending and all of the other things, yet they're living longer, they're hoarding their capital. Meanwhile, we have significant underemployment with the generation coming up. We have massive overvaluations in every historical thing. We've got worldwide debt of $350 trillion that will never be paid back just by pure math.
So,
Last but not least, this happened in 2023. This lady talked about it. IBM laid off 8,000 HR people and replaced them with a chat bot.
Yeah.
The bot did 94% of the HR work, pay, vacation, paperwork, and terminations even. 3.5 billion in productivity gains, 40% drop in HR cost. Now, there was some community note on this going, hey, no big deal because AI hired more people. And they did. They got rid of 8,000 HR jobs and they added right here. Instead of shrinking the overall workforce, IBM ended up hiring just as many people again, this time in areas far removed from traditional HI. So,
Jeff, what about the Fed paper?
I'm going there yet, but here's my point. They added 8,000 jobs, so people were like, oh, it's not a big deal. It is for the people that were in HR, number one. And number two, if they could have replaced those new roles with AI, do you think they would have still hired all those people? It's coming, guys. It's coming. So,
well, Taylor, I mean, we've been talking about this. I mean, back on the old show, bullshit and bourbon. I mean, we've been talking about AI and robotics, and Taylor's been screaming from the rooftops when he was running for mayor about how there is a second, industrial revolution coming. It's going to transform the way that business is done. It's going to replace not just blue collar jobs like it did in the industrial revolution, but white collar jobs. AI is, in this case, it's replacing their entire HR department, allowing them, because the HR department, there really is no net, value there. Whereas these other jobs that you were just talking about, Jeff, they probably hired people that actually built products that they sell to make money. So it made their profitability go up as opposed to people that just maintain their workforce. So that is how this, AI is changing. I mean, Taylor, he doesn't even need legal assistance anymore because he can put it in Chat GPT and get it done faster, more accurately, and cheaper. I mean, faster, cheaper, better. It's a no-brainer as a business owner.
So, and I agree. And I'm not saying there's not going to be a lot of opportunity. And Taylor's spoken that as well. Mm-hmm. But I do think there's going to be a volume issue I think we're going to have to move to some kind of weird hybrid capitalism where there's some kind of UBI, because what's going to happen, just this morning, Elon talked about if you copy your code and you got a code, just copy it and drop it in Grok 4 and it'll do it. That's what, literally he admitted that XAI is programming Grok 4 by dropping it into Grok. You know what I mean? Their AI is writing the next generation of program. So
it's improving itself.
How far away are we from all of a sudden? Well, we don't have to hire more programmers because we got our AI to do that. And then we don't have to hire this because so the world where people are going to preferentially prefer a human as the capacity increases in AI is going to shrink, right? Mm-hmm. So I think, and then you're going to have generational things. Like my mom and dad will never do a video. They're not going to do a video teledoc. I'll do a teledoc, but I wouldn't be surprised if my kids or grandkids could care less if they're talking to a robot, as long as it fixes them, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be an interesting time we live through. But the last thing to get what Taylor wanted me to say, there's a guy named In-Game Macro I follow. He's got about 36,000 followers. It's interesting in what he posts. But I'm not going to read this whole thing, but here's the highlight. He says the Federal Reserve isn't sounding alarms. It's publishing clinical semi-routine documents that, when read together, quietly sketch out the blueprint of the monetary regime that's running out of the road. The two releases are the 2025 stress test results and the zero lower bound remains a medium-term risk. Between those two papers, the economists and analysts at the Fed made some assumptions. So, for example, the assumption for the stress test was a 50% stock market plunge, a 30% decline in commercial real estate, a 7.8% GDP contraction, and 10% unemployment, and an immediate drop in short-term interest rates to zero. And he goes on to make some comments about whether or not that's a legitimate stress test or more of a forewarning. Mm-hmm. Then when you go in, you start having an analysis about what would happen if we go down to zero again, and will we be able to climb back up? Because while none of us like 7 or 8% mortgages, as savers, you definitely like 4 and 5% money markets, right? And CDs and actually something for your money. Mm-hmm. And so there's I'm not saying this is prophecy. I'm not even saying it's what's going to happen, But at the very minimum, we have to be aware that the nation's bank's economists and analysts from a policy perspective are willing to even write a paper that suggests what happens if the market goes down by 50, commercial real estate by 30, and 8% GDP contraction and 10% unemployment. And guys, that's not the worst case scenario. I mean, we had 25% unemployment in the Great Depression, right? So we just live. My point is, you take all these things together: the aging of America, what's going on with the Fed, what's happening with legislation and with crypto, where we are with our between our not only our demographics but just all of the different traditional asset classes and how we are now we are more highly valued on historical norm ratios than we were in 1929 and 2008. And it's not even close. However, we've been more highly valued than those ratios, generally speaking, since about 2021 at a whole different level than those two peaks. So who knows how long this can go on, but I just want people to pay attention. This is not just stick your money in and forget it, right? We got to be diligent in all fronts, economically, politically, financially. You need to be, tax strategies. You got to pay attention to all this. It's a highly volatile world we're in now.
And it's going to get more so with the added liquidity that blockchain offers. 24/7, 365, being able to enter and exit positions. It's going to increase the volatility. So, well, let's go around the horn real quick. Just closing thoughts, and if you want, comment on your thoughts on the rumor that Jerome Powell might be on his way out. But Taylor, you go first.
So I'll talk about what I think of. So for the longest time, I hated the Fed. I thought it was the worst thing, this horrific organization that was controlling our money supply. Watching how horrific our Congress and any president we've had, I'm actually kind of glad that they don't control the printing press. Jerome Powell's the only one that seems to be showing any restraint of, hey, we're not going to bend to these things because you guys want to make more money. And, the Fed is kind of there it's doing its job, which is punishing the government for constant printing. And so I would love a system where we, the people, could control our own money and we didn't need to give it off to the banking industry and the Fed. The reality of what I'm seeing is our government is far more irresponsible. So wanting someone like Jerome Powell, who has been one of the lonely level heads out there, trying to, keep the system going forward. I think you probably don't want that going into the hands of our Congress and presidency right now, because they have no self-control right now. What we're doing is, incredibly foolish. And so the problem is humans. And I'm hoping we can get to a system where we can have things like blockchain technology and AI running and handling things versus human beings who are profiting off of this system and, benefiting themselves. Like we talked at the very beginning, that Trump became president and then launched his own coin. Incredibly foolish thing to do.
Well, except for the $3 billion he made.
It was super beneficial for him, but
but all the
Congress, certainly a travesty of the office. Yes.
But everybody in Congress is doing it, and they're showing exactly the problem with humans is that we will lie, cheat, and steal for power. And the faster we can figure out a way to get rid of humans in positions of power, the better.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. Jeff, closing thoughts.
I'll continue that thread a little bit. Just in this, I think I think one of the best things Trump could do for both policy and this country is never say another word about Jerome Powell. He has the right to appoint the next guy. But the best thing for us, as far as our trading partners, the rest of the world, and I know there's some folks listening to like, screw the rest of the world. I get it. Or at least I understand that point of view to some degree. But as long as we are a nation that runs a debt to pay our own bills, we have to have creditors. And the marginal creditors are the other treasuries of the other nations. And we need them to feel confident in the soundness of our money. And to do that, and people are going to think this is an anti-Trump thing. It's not. It's just his personality is one to be super open. So he wants Powell to cut rates, right? The idea being he cut rates, it's going to lower rates and mortgages, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Except when Powell cut rates in December, after Trump was going to be president, right? The election was done. That didn't work. Immediately, the bond market went up, not down. And it went up because there's a lot of concern about how healthy we are right now to be able to pay our bills on a relative basis. Okay. Now it still went up to, 10-year went up to 4.5%. It didn't go up to like 15, or 120, like it's Argentina or something. But my point is, the way he keeps making this a very loud, you need to do this, you need to do this, you're an idiot, you're a moron, I'm going to put somebody that does X. What that signals to everybody, and certainly our rest of the world, is he's going to appoint almost a puppet at the Fed. Now it's still a vote, but a puppet. That's a huge problem. Even if Trump was perfect in his decision makings and in his philosophies, what that tells the rest of the world is that whoever is in power as the president controls the economy directly through the lever of the Fed. Mm-hmm. And the issue with that is, so I'm going to say this for the people that are watching that are Trump fans. Fine. But once you establish that precedent where the Fed loses independence and just does what the president says, then guess what? That also applies if AOC gets elected. Yep. That also applies if Bernie Sanders got elected. That also applies if it's Ron DeSantis. Doesn't matter who gets elected. Once that's why everybody bitched so much about how much executive orders. Honestly, Trump, really going back to Clinton, then Bush, then really at Obama. Then carried on by Trump at the whole nother level, then carried on by Biden at a whole nother level, and now Trump's left everybody in the dust. Well, the more you do executive orders, the more it becomes okay to do executive orders. And we become more of a kingdom and less of a democracy. Again, that's good because you get stuff done that you want done, but you also open the door for people to be able to do the exact same thing against those policies you're happy about. So what we do not need is the rest of the world thinking, oh, whoever is in office is completely dictating the economical monetary situation of the United States, because that creates massive volatility, right? What if we get an Austrian in that just says we actually will? We're going to cut all the expenses and we're going to right? And I'm not saying that wouldn't actually work after 15 or 20 years. I'm simply saying that each one of the, a super liberal president that controls the Fed, a Republican or a MAGA president that controls the Fed, or somebody central, each one of those does massively different things to the monetary community if there's not some level of independence by our nation's bank. So that's what I'm about.
Yeah, and people, you have to understand, we don't make things in America. We print money and send it out to the world so all of us can have cushy jobs. We are the world's lords. Like in America,
we're consumers.
Yeah, we get this pleasure of having easy life, easy jobs because the world trusts our financial market. There's nowhere else to go. The world stops trusting our financial market. Say goodbye to your lifestyle. You will be back in the field working. Like that's how it works in the real world. Like you will go back to that type of lifestyle. You have to have trust in the system. And right now, the problem is we're not electing trustworthy people. We just had probably the biggest shock of our life that Trump ran on. I mean, I voted for Trump. So he ran on claiming that he was going to release Epstein's files.
Yep.
And did a 180 and then told us to shut up about it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the most shocking thing to me in thing. Like, you cannot trust him anymore.
No.
He will turn 180 with whatever's going on behind the scenes, and you don't get to know.
Mm-hmm.
And it might be for a good reason. I don't know. I don't know why he's doing this. I just know that it doesn't matter who's getting in right now. They just do whatever they want. Jeff, we can see your screen. Don't look up porn.
I'm looking for something about what you're saying. If porn comes up, that's just the feed, y'all.
No, yeah. So
It's your
yeah,
feed
no,
for a reason, though. Let's put it that way.
it's the algorithm. It knows what he wants to look at.
That's hilarious.
So yeah, no, there's a lot going on right now, and none of us have a crystal ball, but you have to pay attention. If you're not paying attention, then you're going to be left behind. It really is that simple. If you're not constantly looking at ways to improve your situation and remove yourself from the volatility and remove yourself from inflation and things like that, hedge against inflation. I mean, have a small. I mean, and this kind of goes more into just basic survival and emergency preparedness. But having a small garden, having a fresh water source and a way to heat your house that isn't reliant on a pipe that comes from the city, things like that. I mean, you really need to understand, our, like what Taylor was saying, our quality of life here in the U.S. and a lot of these first world countries. Being able to go to a grocery store where just daily they're shipping in and trucking in fresh produce and all of these things that we buy and eat. If those trucks stop rolling, if those goods stop being shipped from overseas, where are you going to get those things? If they just disappear, are you going to be fist fighting for toilet paper? You really need to think about these things and not to be doom and gloom and that the end is near. But, if there's a storm, flooding that just happened in Texas, if there's an emergency, do you have enough, food and medication and things that you need, basic necessities, fresh water for 7 days, for 3 days? Do you have any of these things? So, financially, are you protected? The dollar, inflation is killing the buying power of the dollar. Do you have anything? And I know it's hard. A lot of people are struggling right now, but do you have vehicles, financial vehicles that are either equal to or greater than the earning power of the dollar? If your money is just sitting in the bank, every year you are losing money. And Jeff and Taylor can probably detail that a little more than I can as far as how much you're losing. But you need to understand these things, because otherwise you're always going to be poor, because the rich are paying attention and they're going to figure out ways to suck your value and take it for themselves, either through printing money, through raising the price of things, just anything and everything they can do. That's why I got into DeFi, is because my military retirement is, its buying power is shrinking because the cost of living adjustment they do does not keep up with inflation. I don't want to be 80 years old, 90 years old and have my retirement be worth, basically half as much or, more. So, I'm doing what I can do to do these things that I was just talking about. So,
Michael, first of all, I think that was an excellent close, and I'm just going to do a quick U-turn just real fast because I think everybody should see this because it'll certainly put weight to what just happened. I did not realize this. This says the Epstein Victims Compensation Program, established by Jeffrey Epstein's estate, received approximately 225 applications from alleged victims. That's a lot of girls that, quote, didn't do anything with anyone, based on this last week. Of these, 150 were deemed eligible for compensation, with 138 individuals accepting payouts totaling approximately 125 million. So the Epstein estate paid out $125 million for something that didn't happen?
right?
An issue? That there's nothing to see there? That there's no files? Are you kidding me?
Well, and that Maxine chick, she's been in jail for how many years now for a little black book and things that didn't happen?
Weird stuff, man. But it's oh, and lastly, just out of curiosity, I wish somebody would ask Bonnie this question. Like, look, I didn't expect it to be released because I thought I'd be too damning on both sides.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
what I wouldn't have done if I wasn't going to release it is the redacted list crap they did with the influencers like several months ago. So I
Yep.
would be like, so wait a minute, either you're lying and you have a list and that's what you redacted hundreds of pages of,
Yeah.
or you did what?
You're
Print off Latin fill script and then cover
you
it with black ink to give it to
well,
people,
you either lied or you lied.
Yeah.
right? And honestly, what? So there's a lot of people I know that are really brokenhearted because they were lied to because they were such true believers. I'm brokenhearted that we have people that's so dumb that can't figure out what an obvious lie to not make. Like, you know what I mean? Like if somebody
Yeah.
goes, if I'm somewhere I don't need to be and somebody puts a gun on me and goes, "Who are you?" I'm not going to say Michael Jordan because I'm obviously not. Like
Yeah.
this was so stupid. You gave people either a real list you never were going to release or a fake list that doesn't exist and said it
And,
was real.
well,
What?
and everything points to that the list exists. I mean, there's court documents that show there was a black book, and there was, I think it was like 90 something names or something like that, that were in it. And it might even be more than that. I mean, and Taylor, you can speak to this more, but there is there's documentation showing, and like you just went over, I mean, there's victims that got paid. Obviously, something happened.
I mean,
Yeah,
a lot of money.
you don't get paid from those victim lists unless you absolutely. I mean, it's very hard to get money out of those things.
Mhm.
Like you as an attorney, when we bring claims to get paid from those things, you have to almost absolutely prove that it happened.
Yeah.
So that means that, how do you prove that you got raped? Well, it's going to be pretty obvious that Epstein had some book that had your name in it. You proved that
Probably
you were that
videos.
person, or videos, and the court and everybody knows it and they've seen it and they know exactly what's going on. And so they pay you out the money.
Yep.
But it is very hard to get paid from those settlements. You have to produce a lot of evidence.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, gentlemen, I know that you're both very busy, and I very much appreciate the time you take each week to do these shows, because I mean, you guys have a lot of knowledge to share, and I know that you really enjoy sharing that. Of course, you have your seminars that you do on financial planning and stuff like that. So if you're interested in that sort of thing, I highly suggest that you look Taylor and Jeff up. Do you guys want to kind of show people how they can find you for that?
So, on our seminars, man, we pay a company to produce them. Like, we don't really know how people just show up at them. So, we need
but we'll probably try to get an archive together soon. We need
we just film one of them and just put it out there.
Yeah, that's what we'll do. But I appreciate the plug that we completely dropped the ball on, but thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, but I mean, definitely look up the Willingham Law Firm in McKinney, Texas. You can get hold of Jeff or Taylor there. Taylor, of course, does estate planning, has a title company. Jeff, he helps out people with their portfolios for traditional finance. Keep beating him up about getting into DeFi. Eventually, we'll get him there. But
I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it. I think I might have to open up an account this weekend and get some plume.
Well, let me know. I'd be more than happy to help you. Have you heard about my Lord and Savior DeFi? So with that, I appreciate y'all and for tuning in. And please, by all means, look up. Let's see. Look up our brother channels, Discover Crypto. Every morning we have Blockchain Report if you're into crypto airdrops and farming those to earn free crypto. Blockchain Basement, they give great alpha on projects and trading. BitLab Academy if you want to learn how to read charts and do technical analysis to do day trading. And of course us if you want to learn about DeFi. But with that, thank you, gentlemen, again. And until next time, Veteran Crypto out.